find yourself coming up against sewing-related problems that leave you stumped and that subsequently sap your momentum? Today, regular Check Your Thread guest and our resident coach, Kim Witten, explains how to work through our stumbling blocks swiftly and effectively. To do this, Kim shares a series of 5 simple questions to ask ourselves that break down any daunting challenge into something far more manageable and achievable. This is a super useful one, so stick around a few minutes to hear what Kim has to teach us. Welcome to Check Your Thread, the podcast that will help you sew more sustainably. My name's Zoe and I'm obsessed with sewing. I've been blogging about it for over 16 years and I'm the creator and host of the popular handmade wardrobe challenge Me Made May. But, like many people, I've become increasingly concerned about the climate crisis, and I'm looking at the way that my lifestyle contributes to it. So in this podcast, I'll be nerding out about making clothes whilst exploring how to minimise the negative impact that it may have. I really hope you'll join me in this journey. Hello, lovely listener. How are you doing? What's going on with you today? Have you had any sustainability wins of late? Here's one that my husband had, and it's a good one. Years ago, he bought a Bluetooth speaker from that Buy Me Once website. If you haven't heard of it, it's basically a shopping platform that claims to only sell products that are genuinely built to last. Anyway, we heard about this website and he got a voucher for Christmas for it one year, and he used it to buy himself an expensive but really good quality speaker. But eventually it did break. Well, last week he decided to take it to one of those mobile phone repair shops and the person was able to fix it. And now it works really well and he listens to drum and bass really loudly in the kitchen whilst he does the washing up. Another great aspect to this is that the repair cost £25, but it would have cost £100 to replace the speaker. Now, obviously, the main motivator was keeping the item in use in the way it was intended to be used for as long as possible. But it's always awesome when the repair also saves you money, isn't it? And lovely Check Your Thread patron Kat recently shared a sustainability win that is something very doable for all of us. Kat says, "Unfortunately, I'm unable to do any crafting right now as my scapular muscle is strained, very sensitive and extremely sore with the pain radiating down my arm. I'm having to rest right now, which I'm finding very hard. In terms of sustainability, I'm planning to look through all my supplies this weekend and try and organise everything better so I know what I have and where to find it, and maybe, just maybe, reduce what I have." Well, I hope you're healing up nicely, Kat. Thanks for sharing this win. It's a great reminder that sustainability wins come in all shapes and sizes. I want to say massive thanks this week to new patrons Hayley, Mariko and Louise. Welcome to the Check Your Thread patron community. I can't make this podcast without the financial support and, let's be honest, often the emotional support from the amazing Check Your Thread patrons. If you'd like to help keep new episodes of Check Your Thread appearing in your podcast app, please consider signing up. The amount is totally up to you, whatever is doable, but it can start from as little as £1 or $1 or €1 or one other currency per month. So please head to Patreon, so patreon.com/checkyourthread to get a taste of what the community is like and to sign up. Thank you. So let's get into this week's episode. This one is a little bit different because you'll only be hearing from Kim and not me. As I said before, I love getting other people's voices and perspectives on Check Your Thread. So I invited her to make a solo episode for us, and I'm super grateful to her for doing so. This is actually Kim's 5th appearance on the podcast. She always has such awesome insights and useful takeaways that can help us in our sewing lives and beyond. And today's episode is no different. As well as the 5 questions we need to be asking ourselves, at the end of this episode, she gives us some additional tips to move through tricky patches with greater ease, and you don't want to miss those. And make sure you head to the show notes, either in your phone's podcast app or you can see them more clearly on the website checkyourthread.com. If you missed the questions, you'll find them in the show notes, plus also how you can find Kim and follow her directly. So until next week, take care of yourself and those around you who need and deserve your care. See if your local phone repair person can fix any of your broken electricals, and enjoy.
Hey there, Check Your Thread listeners. My name is Kim Witten, and I'm here to talk about something we all face: sewing challenges. Do your jeans fit? Or maybe you're shopping with someone who struggles to find some that do. What about making your own? It can be daunting when a once exciting project drags on forever with no end in sight, and especially when you're trying to do this in a cramped or otherwise less than ideal space. So whether it's the pants, the project size, or the project space that doesn't fit you and your lifestyle, we're tackling them all. I'm going to give you a few questions you can ask yourself that will help you solve not just these three specific challenges, but anything related to sewing and beyond. So stick around to the end where I'll recap the questions and strategies that I've used throughout this mindset mending episode. So the first challenge, number 1, James's jeans problem. So the first challenge I want to talk to you about today is one I've been working on for my partner, James. He has this ongoing issue with jeans. They just don't fit him right. And I'm not talking about just hemming the legs. It's more complicated than that. So the first question I ask myself is, what is the problem that I'm trying to solve here? And the core issue with this one is simple. James needs pants that fit him better. But after talking it through with him and really paying attention to how the jeans fit throughout the day, I realized that the biggest issue is with the torso and butt area. The jeans are either sliding down, which makes them uncomfortable, or they're too baggy, which makes them look sloppy. So the second question I ask myself is, where are we trying to get to with this? The goal is to find or alter a pair of jeans that don't slide down and provide a comfortable, flattering fit front and back. And James wants to feel good in them, but also it's about them staying in place and not needing constant adjustment throughout the day. So how will we know that we've got it? Well, James can wear these pants and not spend the day fidgeting or adjusting them. That's when we know we've nailed it. They should look good and feel good from morning to night. Another question I ask myself is why does this matter? Why am I bothering? And this is a big one. He's always adjusting his pants, which impacts his confidence. So whether he's at work or running errands, he's never fully comfortable, and that's not ideal. But ultimately, this is about him feeling better in his clothes, and by extension, about his body. When your clothes fit right, it can really affect how you carry yourself. So my role in this is twofold. First, I help him pick out the pants, and then I tailor them, usually hemming the bottoms to fit his shorter legs. For James, he is on the shorter side, so he's 5'7", and myself too. I'm very short. I'm 5 feet. We'll get to that later with my next challenge. But we needed to figure out why this was such a recurring problem with his jeans. It turns out it's not just about the leg length. It was about finding pants that were designed for men with longer torsos. And this realization was a game changer. So we needed to try on pants that are specifically designed for men with longer torsos, buy them, and then hem the legs to the right length. We realized that we needed to go against the convention of shorter guy, you go for the short style, or maybe the normal length and hem them. Challenge number 2. So the second challenge that I want to share is something that I'm sure a lot of you can relate to. It's getting through a big, involved project without losing steam. For me, that's been the Cassette Pants pattern by Sew Liberated. It's a great pattern, but it's definitely one of those projects that can stretch out over weeks if you're not careful. For me, that's actually been months. So this is how I tackled it. Again, I went through those questions. What is the problem that I'm actually trying to solve here? Well, for me, it's not finishing the pants. It's staying motivated. These pants are a big project, and it's easy to lose steam when something takes so long. So for me, the biggest challenge was to break this down into manageable chunks, something that feels like progress every time I work on it. And it's easy to get overwhelmed by the scale of a project. So this was a way I could make it feel more doable and get that little boost of yes, I made some progress. So I'm not looking to the end. I'm looking to what's the next piece that I can feel good about. So where am I trying to get to with this? The goal is simple. Finish the pants without burning out and make sure they turn out great, or as great as they can be. This is a toile, so we'll see. It's the first time I've made them, and it's also the biggest sewing project I've attempted. Next question I usually ask myself is, how will we know what done looks like? So when I've finished the pants and I can actually wear them, that'll be the proof. Bonus points if I don't feel totally exhausted by the process. Why does it matter? Well, it's about maintaining joy in the sewing process. I love sewing, but if I'm not careful, long projects can feel like a grind, and I don't want that to happen here. Besides, finishing a project like this feels great, and it's not just about the end product, it's also about the satisfaction of sticking with something challenging and seeing it through, being able to tell myself, yes, I can do hard things, even if those hard things aren't necessarily hard for someone else. So where's a good place for me to start? For me, for this challenge, it's by setting small, achievable goals. For example, today I might just focus on cutting out the fabric, and tomorrow I'll work on sewing a couple of seams. Of course, I'm already past that point, but I'm just using that as an example. So in reality, for now, my next step is cutting down the torso. So I have the opposite problem to James with his torso, even though we're both shorties. And even though I took out some length in the torso area when I cut out the pattern, it was still not enough. I had already inserted the zipper. And so my next step was actually to rip out the zipper and then reinsert it. So while I don't like the thought of covering ground I've already done, I'm actually excited about doing the zipper better for a better fit. And it was bugging me that the zipper guard was flipped the wrong way around with the angled point at the bottom going nowhere sensible. So that will be better too. So sometimes you got to go backward to go forward. And like I said earlier, it's all progress. So the third challenge is about hacking my small sewing space. I have a pretty tiny area to work in and it's not ideal, but I've learned a few tricks to help make it more functional. So again, that question, what's the problem you're trying to solve? For me, the problem here is space, or lack thereof. I need to make the most of a small sewing area without feeling cramped or disorganized, because that's going to kill my motivation. For me, this is all about organization. If my space is organized, it feels bigger and easier to work with. I have room to think, to be creative, to breathe, to play. Where are we trying to get to with this? The goal is to create a workspace that feels comfortable and efficient, even though it's small. I'll know I've achieved this when I can move through projects without feeling like the walls are closing in on me. Why does this even matter? A cluttered space leads to a cluttered mind, at least for me. When my sewing area is too chaotic, I don't want to work in it. If I can keep my space tidy and organized, I'll be able to sew more often and enjoy the process more. That's the ultimate goal, right? So a good place to start would be to get rid of anything I don't use or I'm not currently using. If it's not serving a purpose, it doesn't need to take up visual space. Eventually, I'll need to invest in better storage, like vertical shelving or rolling carts that can be easily moved out of the way. But for now, my next step is to clear out one section of my space and then reorganize it with the goal of maximizing efficiency. So there you have it, 3 sewing challenges and the ways I've been thinking about them, shifting my mindset, reframing things, essentially working on solving them. So whether it's finding the right fit for James, staying motivated on long projects, or making the most of a tiny space, I hope these examples have given you some ideas for your own sewing journey and challenges. Let's recap some of the questions and techniques I used to help myself through so that you might want to try them or apply them to what you're working on. So the key questions that I asked myself for each project were, what's the problem I'm trying to solve? Where am I trying to get to with this? How will I know that I've got there? Why does it matter? And where's a good place to start? And then also, sometimes I ask myself, and I think I did with these 3 examples, what's my next step? Sometimes getting started is just the hardest part. If we can make that small, doable, and easy, plus decide when we're going to do that step, it's all much more likely to happen. Here's some other ideas that were tucked into this mini-sode that might help you too. So one thing I did was stepped back to question the standards. Do I have to be tall to buy tall jeans? No. You can do what works, regardless of the labels and sizes. What's real, what's true, what's going to work for you. Another thing that I did throughout was break things down into smaller chunks. It's just so much nicer and feels like progress when we can make things bite-sized for ourselves. Another technique was reframing unhelpful thoughts. When I noticed that reinserting the zipper felt like going backwards, I reminded myself of the benefits of redoing this bit. Plus, I reframed the whole prospect. Sometimes you got to go back to go forward. Another trick I pulled here was about putting things in the right place and time. Notice that I said I would eventually get more shelves for my stuff. If I tried to tackle that bit now, I'd get overwhelmed and give up on even the smaller bit. So don't be afraid to delay or even dump a step in your process or something that you need to do, especially if it's going to get in the way of doing something small, meaningful, and achievable now. So with that, how are you looking at your challenges differently? What might you try next? We'd love to hear, so you can drop me an email at coaching@witten.kim, that's WITTEN.KIM, or leave us a comment on Instagram at witten.kim, or check your thread. Thanks so much for listening, and until next time, happy sewing!
Thanks so much for listening. I really hope you enjoyed this episode and are left feeling inspired. For more info about the podcast, including show notes for this and every episode, head to checkyourthread.com. I'd love to hear from you, so if you have any comments, questions or ideas for future episodes, please get in touch by emailing zoe@checkyourthread.com or find me on Instagram @checkyourthread. Massive thanks to Patrick Potter for production support, to Sylvia Seller for the awesome logo design, and to Simon at Palm Skin Productions for the music. This ad-free podcast would not be possible without listener support, so if you feel you are able, please consider signing up to the Check Your Thread Patreon. For the equivalent of buying me a coffee each month, you'll be making it possible to continue producing regular episodes. Links can be found in the show notes and on the website checkyourthread.com. I hope you'll listen again next week. Until then, take care. Bye!